Hello everybody, and welcome back to Operation Logistics, where last episode we just started putting in road structures. And let me just go into our sub-hexes here. Let's go into this city hex, and you can see we have our road entrances here at standardized locations. And at this point, what we need to be doing is completing our roads. That is to say, we need to get this road to connect with this road to connect with this road, and this road to connect with this road. Now there's a couple of ways we can do this. One, we can just say, oh, it needs to be a straight shot from here, straight to here, from here, straight to here, from here, straight to here. But that's not what I'm going for, I think. I think what we should be looking for is something more along the lines of, well, it can go here, but also maybe it can go, once it's here, maybe it can go here, or here, or here, and it just kind of fuzzily always moves towards this point. The real issue is if we potentially get here, and it chooses here or here, but we may be able to do something about that. And then, of course, we're going to have it turning, and we're going to need road intersections. That's all going to be in future times. Future me will deal with that. Current me doesn't need to deal with that. So as you can see, we've got an interesting little issue going on here. I'm noticing that the roads aren't despawning as we zoom out. That is certainly interesting. We respawn them, right? Like, we just spawn more of them, I believe. Yeah, we spawn more of them. I mean, maybe that's okay-ish. For right now, we'll just leave it the way it is. But the first thing we need is we need these hexes, at least on the sub level right now, to know what their neighbors are. Now, we could go through and manually do that, or we could have it do it automagically, and I think automagically is maybe the way to go. So let's go ahead and go to our sub hex here, and let's create ourselves, where do I want to do this? Probably down here. Let's go ahead and create ourselves a public list of, do we want to make this a list of sub hexes or a list of game objects is the question. We may need access to the sub hex at some point, so let's make it a sub hex. And we will call this neighbors, and we'll go ahead and initiate this. Okay, so we're initializing our list, and we now have our list of neighbors, and if we go into our sub hexes here, come on, as soon as it compiles, there we go, you can see that we have a list of neighbors that is currently size 0. Of course, our sub hex is currently buried. However, there are a couple of things that we're going to need to do. First, we need to determine just how wide of a net do we need to cast. Because if we're doing this automatically, I'm going to probably do this with like a raycast sphere, something along those lines. So when we do awake, I'm probably going to go ahead and do it. So here at the awake, let's go ahead and do a grab neighbors function. And we won't need to do anything with that, per se. However, what we can do is we can create ourselves a grab neighbors function, because it doesn't exist. Public void grab neighbors. We're not going to need any variables, I don't think. Maybe we will. Oh, we know our hex offset. We might be able to utilize that. I don't know. So first things first, we're going to need to do an overlap sphere, and let's figure out how exactly we do that. So, let's create ourselves a bit of an array here. So, collider, array, colliders. And we're not going to initialize that just yet. On a different line, I'm going to go ahead and initialize it just to keep it a little bit more clear. And also, towards Utopia, you're awesome and all, but I'm going to bump that down 5%. There we go. Okay, so for our colliders, we will say colliders equals physics, not physic material, physics.raycast sphere, or what do they call it? Sphere cast? Yeah, overlap sphere. I think that's what we're looking for. Returns an array with all colliders touching or inside the sphere. Yes, that is exactly what we're looking for. So we will do this at transform.position. So we're doing this at the position of the sub-hex. And then the question is, what radius do we use? That is indeed a good question. So our radius should probably be something along the lines of our size, right? For right now, let's just go ahead and say 0.1f. And ideally, when we have the correct radius, we should be returning 7-ish. We may also be returning 8, because we may be returning a map hex, which is something to note. So let's just go ahead and, for right now, do a debug.log, and we're going to simply log colliders.length. It should be between 7 and 8 if we have our right overlap sphere size. I'm not convinced we do, but we'll find out. It is returning 79. So, we definitely do not have the correct size. That was my Steam library, I'm not sure. Apparently, I was looking at Hearts of Iron. That's exciting. Okay, that can go away. I am actually thinking about playing some Hearts of Iron soon. That could be fun. But first, let's bump this down to 0.01f, since that is currently our scale on our sub-hexes. Is that going to be correct-ish? Yeah, 7 and 8. Some of them are getting 5, which could be correct. 7, 8, 5. The ones out here should be getting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the subhex, so 5? Yeah, that'd be correct. Okay, so I think we are getting our correct colliders then. We'll find out soon enough. So in our sub-hex here, let's go ahead and do a for loop for int I equals 0, I is less than colliders.length. Now, this I believe is 0 indexed. Yeah, that should be 0 indexed. So there shouldn't be an issue there. Yeah, that's the, I'm 95% certain that's 0 indexed. So I++. Okay, so that'll iterate through our entire list of colliders, and now we want to weed out bits. So, for example, if colliders.gameObject, or actually collidersi.gameObject equals this.gameObject. So if it's this item, we don't need to add it to the adjacency. So just continue. Also, if collidersi.gameObject.tag is not equal to whatever we tagged our sub-hexes with, which is untagged currently. That's a little exciting. Let's go ahead and tag them. I'm going to add a new tag. I'm not going to reuse sub-hexes because we're using that for the collection of them, shall we say. So I'm just going to say sub-hex rather than sub-hexes. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and make all 73 of these be of type sub-hex, or rather of tag sub-hex, and then check to see if the tag is not equal to sub-hex. There we go. Almost typoed that. If it's not equal to sub-hex, then we can continue. So that will only take sub-hexes, but it will not take itself. And then, if it gets through both of those conditions, then we should probably have it just say neighbors.add, and then we will say colliders.i.getComponent hex. I don't know how fast that'll be. We'll find out. So that should theoretically-ish get us neighbors. And we'll see how quickly that runs. Well, that was quite quick, actually. Okay, so this map hex right here. Let's go ahead and go top down. And let's check its neighbors. So it has map hex 1, 2, 3, 9, 52, and 51. Okay. So it got these guys. 9, 52, and 51. Okay. 9, 52, and 51. Yeah, that seems to be correct. And it does not have itself, so that's perfect. So it now knows all of the hexes that are adjacent to it. In the sub-hexes. The sub-hexes don't know that yet, and nor do the world hexes, but we can use the same technique to get the information for those. So that shouldn't be too bad. Okay, so we don't actually need the information on those levels yet, but we can always implement this in a matter of minutes at that point, when we do need it. So we should then consider in our, let's see, is that in the hex, or rather the sub-hex manager, generate roads? Yes, okay. So this is where it is generating our road entries. And then for each road entry, we need to just snake through towards another road entry, a specific other road entry. Okay, so let's see, which one is... This is a new recording session, and I can't remember. Road entries.count. So in the sub-hex manager, let's go ahead and say road entries are currently set to size of 6. Okay. So, with that being the case, if we set this hypothetically to a size of 4, okay. What about a size of 1? Okay, it starts here. And yeah, that's not going to work, but we'll go ahead and reset that. Okay, so if we set this then to a size of 2, okay, it starts here and it goes counterclockwise. Excellent. So we can say it would be 0, 1, 2, 3. So 0 and 3. And then just always add 3. So 1 and 4. And then 2 and 5. Because it's 0 through... It's 6 of them, but it's 0 index, so it's 0 through 6. So we can always just add 3. And then say something along the lines of... Okay. We want to do something along the lines of while true. And this will never break out unless we actively break it. So I'm going to go ahead and break it right there. We'll change that here in a little bit. So while true, goal location equals road entries I. Okay, we only need to do this 3 times. We don't need to do this 6 times. So I want to do a bit of a check here. If I is less than or equal to 2. So if it's 0, 1, or 2, it will go ahead and run this while loop. There we go. Ish. Hang on. I need to do that. Okay. So if I is less than or equal to 2, while true, goal location equals road entries I plus 3. So if it's 0, it should return 4. If it's 1, it should return 5. Hang on. This is not right at all, is it? 0, 1, 2, 3. So 0, 3, 1, 4, 2, 5. Yeah, that's right. I don't know what I was thinking. I was completely right. And we're just going to get transform.location. And this is going to be a vector3. So vector3 goal location equals, not location, dot position. What am I thinking? I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm doing anymore. This is horrible. Okay, so vector3 goal location equals road entries I plus 3 dot transform dot position. So that's our goal location. So the next thing that we want to do is get ourselves a bit of a list of positions of our nearby unit or nearby places that we can go to, because we only want to move to a neighbor that is closer to the goal position than our current location. We don't really care about anything more than that, because I want to make them kind of snake around, so we'll just randomly choose, but we always want it to move towards, if that makes any sense. And then we'll be able to create some transitional road types later on. But for right now, let's just get ourselves a bit of a list of, and I'm going to make this be a list of sub-hex. That'll be fine. Sub-hex, and this is going to be called possibilities. I don't think that's how you spell possibilities. Maybe that's how you spell possibilities. We'll call this a list subhex possible locations. Okay. And we'll just initiate that as a new list for right now. We will populate that here in a moment. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go through our list of neighbors. So for int I, actually we'll go with int j because we've already used I, equals 0. J is less than neighbors dot count j++, and we're going to need to use specifically road entries I dot neighbors dot count. Okay. And actually, let's go ahead and do something along the lines of this. So sub hex current hex equals road entries I. Because we're going to need to move what hex we're currently working on. And then our goal location can be moved out here. We're not going to need to calculate that every while loop. Our possible locations will need to be recalculated every while loop, but current hex.neighbors.count rather than road entries. Okay, so we've got ourselves a couple of things here. The first thing we need to do is create ourselves our list, which is what we're working on doing right now. I have no idea what I'm babbling about at this point. Okay, so for int j equals 0, j is less than current hex.neighbors.count j++. So we need to be determining for each neighbor, is this neighbor closer to our goal location than our current location? And I think the easiest way to do that would be to say something along the lines of float current distance equals, and this is going to be, okay, we know our goal location, so this is going to be current hex.transform.position minus goal location dot square magnitude. We're not going to use regular magnitude because we don't care about the actual distance. We don't need the square root call. We can just compare it squared. We're interested in comparative distance. We're not interested in overall distance. So, with that in mind, we now know our current hex's distance. And then the question is this neighbor, does it have a closer distance? So, float neighbor distance equals, and this is going to be current hex dot neighbors dot transform dot position minus, and I'm going to go down onto a new line here, goal location dot square magnitude. Okay, why is it throwing... Oh, because I need to do neighbors j. Neighbors j.transform.position minus goal location dot square magnitude. Okay, so we now know the distance from our hex as well as from the neighbor's hex. So we need to determine if the neighbor is closer to the goal hex than our current hex. So let's go ahead and say if neighbor distance is less than current distance, current distance, not current hex. So if the neighbor is closer, we'll just add the neighbor to the list of possible locations. So possible locations dot add, and this is going to be current hex dot neighbors j. And then once we have our list populated, which that will fully populate the list, then we can come on down here and we can choose randomly from the list. So we can say current hex equals, and it will always choose the final hex because that will be a distance of 0-ish. So it'll always choose the final hex the last time we do this. So current hex equals, and this will be just randomly chosen. So it equals possible locations, and the index that we choose will be random.range, a range of 0 to possible locations dot count. Now, for integers, the maximum range is exclusive. So that does mean that it will go, for example, if we have 3 locations that are closer, which is the standard, we'll normally have 3 locations that are closer to our goal hex than our current hex. So if we have those 3, and it returns possible locations dot count, possible locations dot count will return 3. So we should probably add in a 1, because that way it will return, it'll randomly generate between 0 and 3, because for integers, if we go here, you can see returns a random integer number between min, inclusive, and max, exclusive. So, theoretically that shouldn't cause any errors. Current hex equals possible location, so we change our current hex, and then we should then go ahead and spawn ourselves a road at this location. So we can go ahead and just copy this in for right now. This will change here in a bit, most likely. We'll just copy that in. And vector 3 rot, that's fine. I mean, this is all fine for right now. And then down here, if, and also we should consider doing this break first. So let's go ahead and do if current hex equals goal location. That's not going to really get us what we want. If current hex, let's go ahead and get a reference to it actually. Sub hex goal hex equals road entries I plus 3. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and redo this to be goal hex. So if current hex equals goal hex, then we don't actually need to spawn the road. So at that point, we can just break out of the loop. Otherwise, we can go ahead and do all of this. Okay, let's see how that runs. That might actually just do the trick. Ish. I mean, there'll be issues. I know there'll be issues. Also, we should run a check here to say if, and actually we need to do this after we determine the current hex. There we go. We should run a check right here to say if current hex dot building equals buildings dot none. Then we do this. We don't want to be spawning multiple roads on the same hex. So we only run this if there is not currently a building on the hex. Okay, let's see how that runs. Could be interesting. It could break everything. But it didn't, yet. Oh, Argument is out of range. Okay. Hang on. Oops. That's not what I meant to do. Argument is out of range. Yes, but where? It is on line 154. Okay, so right here. That's interesting. Why is it returning out of range every time, is the question. I'm trying removing the +1 because I might have been wrong on that. That's interesting. Now it did literally nothing. Uh-huh. So why did that not do anything? But yet it was erroring out every time I did possible locations .count +1. Okay, let's go ahead and do this. Debug.log possible locations .count. I want to know how many things are in that list. There should most of the time, at least the first time it's run, be 3. Okay, because I need to go in here. Yeah, there's 3. And then 2, and then 1. Okay. I wonder if it's defaulting to a different building. Building none. No, it's not. Okay. So if current hex equals goal hex, then we break out. Otherwise, we check to see if it's got a building. If it doesn't, then we build a road on it. Uh-huh. Well, it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we'll try to figure out why this isn't quite working the way I expected. See you all then.